for a long time, we saw quarterbacks, once they got into the early 30s, fell off a cliff, and we saw their level of play can just drop in a big way. And now with the way these guys are able to take care of their bodies, these guys play from the pocket, so they've been able to preserve themselves beyond that. But I don't think there's anything wrong. It's all going to be about what the college game's giving you. You know, with the 7-on-7 culture, the Elite 11 culture that you know all so well, we should be producing more talented quarterbacks. Colleges are throwing it more than they ever have. So if the college game can keep giving you supply, to me, there's going to be, for lack of a better phrase, you're not going to have a gun to your head to continue to sign these quarterbacks into their mid and late 30s because there's going to be more coming down the pipeline. But that, to me, has all to do with the supply that the college game's giving you. And I think you'll see teams, because of the financial situation, and that could change in the next CBA. But as it is right now, it's just more financially beneficial to try and use them up for that. Maybe give them that second contract. You get to that 9-10 year mark, and then let's flip it over and let's go get another cheap one.
It is that. But you know what's funny? I'm surprised that we haven't heard a general manager go on record and say that. Like, hey, look, man, this position, because the money that we're sinking into the quarterback position, if they're not Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, man, it's killing us. Like, just imagine, because we've seen this, and this is kind of relevant. Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. Both of these franchises likely have to move on from that, because the prospect of paying, we would call it an average quarterback, $25-30 million just because they take the snap.
How do you can't do that. You can't do that.
Well, how do you do it? Not only just looking at the books, but how do you do it in the morale in the locker room when everyone is looking over saying, man, this guy isn't even our best player, and we're paying him to carry the franchise? I just think it's hard. I think the guy who has the courage to be like, oh, no, we're not paying that. Like, we'll just move on. We'll just continue to cycle these out. Of course, your coaching has to be able to deal with a young quarterback and get them ready to play. I do believe it could be a better long-term model to go that route, as opposed to, hey, man, we're just going to continue to pay the quarterback and just pay average quarterbacks a bunch of money to be placeholders.
They might not be having that discussion publicly, but I guarantee you they're having that discussion privately, and it's going to see who has the courage to be the first one to move on.
Let's just say, like, when you take a Lamar Jackson, and the Baltimore Ravens are all in, they've said that they believe they can revolutionize the way that teams draft, evaluate, and kind of build their teams in this vein. So let's just say Lamar Jackson is your quarterback, and at some point you're going to have to pay Lamar Jackson. Do you pay Lamar Jackson and value Lamar Jackson like you value a Jared Goff and all the other quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and the like? Or do you value him at a lesser note because the risk potentially may be greater because he's running and scrambling? And if you value him at a lesser note, does that mean every other year that we need to go and try and find a lesser version of Lamar Jackson, maybe in the third or fourth round, so we can stockpile our team so that when we play this way, we know, oh, yeah, it's cool, but these guys become more position players as opposed to franchise quarterbacks? Or are we saying, hey, Lamar Jackson, when you get older, we're going to then ask you to change your style, which isn't going to necessarily play to your strength?
Well, look, I think Lamar can throw it better than a lot of the dual threat quarterbacks that come out year after year. I think he's more advanced as a passer, and the hope for me is that he's going to continue to grow and advance in that area, where you end up having a situation where Russell Wilson early on is maybe moving around a little bit more than he is later in his career. You're hoping he's going to advance. I personally, I'd like to be Lamar Jackson's agent for his second contract. I would not like to be his agent for his third, because I think he is. I think they will look at it and say, okay, this is about a 9-10 year window, right, to play this way, and I think he will get paid in line with some of those other premier quarterbacks on his next contract. I just don't know, as so many of these quarterbacks we see playing in their mid to late 30s that have been able to get multiple contracts. I don't know that we're going to get to that point in time.
You're the general manager. You're now Marty Herney of the Carolina Panthers, and you're faced with this dilemma. And let's just know that Cam Newton is on the books next year for $19 million, but only $2 million of that is guaranteed. Okay, so you're sitting here maybe with, I don't know, $18, $19 million in surplus money potentially if you elect to move on from Cam Newton. You're looking at the way this team is constructed. You have Christian McCaffrey. You have a defense that's playing lights out. You could have $18 million to play with if you move on from Cam Newton, knowing that, look, Kyle Allen has a ceiling. I'm not saying that Kyle Allen is a franchise quarterback or anything like that, but we have seen, man, teams have been really successful with a cheap quarterback and distributing the money to other areas. But what do you do, DJ?
Well, it's not even just that. It's not even just that, Buck. You're dealing with a ticking time bomb because Cam Newton, because of the way he plays, has a shelf life. You can't, even as big and as strong as he is, we've talked about it before, you can't play that reckless. And he even recognized it because he's tried to change his game. Unfortunately, in changing his game, he's not as impactful in playing in a new style, in a new way to try and protect himself. So I'm going to end up with a quarterback who, if he has to play a certain way for us to win games, but playing that way is going to put him in harm's way. And I don't know, he could be hurt. It could be 1 game, 2 games a year. You don't know when that time is coming, but it's coming. Or we're going to make him do something where he's not totally comfortable and hasn't been as effective and impactful. And I'm going to have to pay him a bunch of money. So in my opinion, there is pressure on Cam to come back, win football games, show that you can win football games, and stay healthy for the remaining stretch of the season, because there are a whole host of reasons for them to move on, and there aren't quite as many for them to stay with him.